Ramble is proudly sponsored by My Business Group, a group of brands designed to support owners, leaders and managers in business. Contact mybusinessgroup.co.uk for more information or follow the link in the description below. And seeing as this is 3MB, we are proudly sponsored by VMB Auto Centres at Handsworth. They're still offering that amazing deal of 50% off your MOT when you let them know that you're a Rambler. Thank you to VMB Auto Centres for their continued support.
Blades fans, subscribe to Blades Ramble. Up the Blades.
What is happening, Blades? And welcome back to the Blades Ramble. I am, of course, Jimmy, and this is the 3 Mardy Blades. I need to lie down after setting up this stream. Wow. To be honest, apologies, first of all. We originally scheduled this for 7 o'clock. I have been otherwise engaged today, so I had to push it back to 8. That then left me behind in terms of where I was in the day and with the plans and everything else. Wanted to be on a lot earlier than this to get everything set up for this really stressful setup. Probably to Joe Ordinary, it wouldn't be a problem, but for somebody like me who's a complete idiot when it comes to tech, yeah, it's been tough trying to set up this stream just off the bat, ping. But we're here, and thankfully I've got 2 lads with me that can carry this stream as I go for a lie down. So first of all, welcoming in one of the 3 Mardy Blades, it is Paul the Man Mountain.
This is the view from the mountain with a heart so pure it's astounding. Man Mountain, strong and true. What a man, what a view.
What a man, what a view. How's it going, pal?
Yes, mate. Here we are.
Look at this new setup. How good that it looks great. I can't work it, but it looks great.
I don't know. It's I don't know. I'll have to ask the commenters, mate. See what the picture looks like.
Yeah. So there's been a bit of a mild panic, hasn't there? Because it's the first time you 2 lads, I think, have been part of this software. And it's the first time we've run with 3 people on this software. Because I trialed it with Lee Edridge, I think, as the first dual stream on Behind the Ramble. But when you go backstage in here, it's using a different bit of kit. And you guys initially couldn't see each other, but when you could, it were like, oh my God, I don't like the look of that picture. But I think your picture looks all right, because on the main software that I'm using, that hopefully is what pulls through, it looks sweet as, mate. We need to have the housewife's favourite looking good.
Mate, I'm just excited to speak to radio's very own Dave Leary. That's
introducing Radio 5 Live's own Blades Ramble correspondent. It is, of course,
the third wheel.
The first wheel.
The first
Dave the Nose.
Dave the Nose, he really knows where the wind, I know whispers blow. Smelly brain, he's in the know. Dave the Nose steals the show.
Smelly brain, there he is.
Smelly brain, Dave the Nose. How are you doing, pal?
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Just checking. I just want to make sure I'm appealing to all demographics.
Well, let's try this. There you go. How are you doing, Davey boy? Fresh off your radio appearance. Thank you for making time for the Blades Ramble. It's very much appreciated, mate. How are you feeling?
I'm all right, but this software is proper throwing me.
Okay.
Proper throwing.
I know it takes some getting used to, doesn't it? It takes some getting used to this. So we'll ease into it, lads. We'll ease into it. Let's start off with a couple of comments just to see if we can get the ball rolling with it. Joe starts us off saying, "Hear me out. Selles likes a presser and a ball carrier in midfield. Peck, Blaster, Gus, Cal, Davis, Brooks. Who says no to Vinny at centre back? He has the build and can pass his way out." Okay, that starts us off. It were more. Thank you, Joe, for your comment. That was more just to sort of grease the wheels and make sure we knew that the comments were all working and stuff. I'm sure they do. We'll get onto that in a second. I want to hear your thoughts, lads, on the Ruben Selles while they're out, Selles in essentially. I know I've had a brief chat with Paul about it. So Dave, you sort of elaborate on what you've already discussed with Clinton Morrison on Radio 5 this evening. How are you feeling, pal?
Yeah, so it's a massive gamble. But I understand, I think, why the club are doing it. And I think that it's about creating a completely new structure and a new way of doing things going forward. Time will tell. I kind of don't know how to feel about it. It's because we've just had that one YouTube interview with him. It almost still doesn't feel real. So, yeah, I don't think it's really set in yet. But I've just got to we've all got to get behind it and give it a chance. We support the club and not a player or a manager. So let's wait and see what happens. But it's interesting times ahead, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Paul, what's your thoughts as well? I know we've spoken briefly about it. Are you okay with things at the minute?
Yeah. I am. I think it's. I think like what Dave just said. It's not really justifiable from a performance point of view. So if people keep saying 92 points, it is. It was a good achievement last season to get where we got to. The thing I was talking to Ben Bloom about and a few of the other
Clang, clang. Me and my mate Ben.
it wasn't for that because I don't want to just
Yeah.
I don't want to just repeat myself. No, but one thing I do want to say is you got to put it in some perspective. 92 points is a good points return. The third best. We had the third biggest wage budget. So some people would say, that's kind of what should have happened or you could expect to happen, and it often will follow the pattern of the wage budget versus performance. So, for example, Leeds top budget, Burnley second, ours third. So it played out exactly that way. But it was a good achievement. He put the team together very, very quickly. I discussed with you, Jim, about patterns of play, and I don't think that every Blades fan who's been watching every game this last season has been completely satisfied. Whether we're just being a bit too big for his boots because we're a parachute team and we haven't been satisfied necessarily with all the performances. We questioned some of his decision making. The justification for me can't really be on a poor performance in the season because it wasn't a poor performance. It was I think it was a good performance overall with the points haul and everything else. So it has to be, like Dave says, something to do with the new ownership. Now, the more I think about it, the new owners, they're not going to get rid of him in the middle of the season because we're doing very, very well. We saw what happened with Birmingham. We stuck with him. They probably said to him, "Look, you've earned the right to stay on in charge because of the great performance of the team at the time when they come into the club." That's understandable. That's sensible. But when it didn't fall our way at Wembley, I think they had that opportunity, didn't they, to move him on. It is incredibly harsh from his point of view. I'm not worried about Chris Wilder, by the way. I mean, he'll be well compensated, and I'm sure he'll get another job because I don't think that's the end for him. I think he'll have a point to prove to people as well. And we know at this level, he's a really, really top manager, and I think we are taking a big risk here because I think with him in charge, we are almost nothing's guaranteed, but I think we are prime on for another push for promotion with Chris in charge.
Yeah.
The flip to that is I've looked at Selles. I've heard what people have said about him, put it under a bit more of a microscope to see what he's about. It sounds really exciting the way that his career has gone so far. I know people say, "Oh, he's sacked up, or why should he get the Sheffield United job?" There's a lot more to it than that. If we want to go down this route of, we spoke about Bournemouth and Brighton and Brentford, the teams that have gone on and established themselves, probably punching above their weight now. They have a model where they don't pay huge wages to everybody. They're not in the top 10 when it comes to that at all. In fact, they're quite low down on the wage budget front. A lot of the players that they sign, you and I and the Blades fans, we'll never have heard of them when they sign them. They sign people for 20 million quid from Germany, from Africa,
Proven
from
model, though, it has to be said. Proven model from them clubs. Whereas
proven model,
this is
yeah,
new
and
to the
it's going to
unknown.
be very, very difficult to replicate that. Let's put that in. Let's say that, because it's
Yeah.
going to be hard. That's not just going to happen. But the people who've worked under Selles, I know I watched the full Harley Dean video the other day, and he was talking about how, from a coaching perspective, and he's worked under a lot of good managers. He says that he is the top of the people that he's worked for in terms of from a coaching perspective. So I think he's going to instill some new ideas, this high counter pressing style, and it'll be intriguing to see who survives this transfer window. They might have one or two that he wants to move on because they might not fit the type of play that he wants to go down. I know you're crossing your fingers there for Jack Robinson. I know
I
you
don't know
are.
what you mean. No.
No,
Audio
but
listeners, just
I
move
think
on.
there will be casualties of this system, but it's exciting. You know, people are saying, "Oh, we got to sign this guy from Bulgaria." If they turn out to be the next Vasper Bokis, everyone will be like, "Stroke of genius." So we've got to give him an opportunity. We've got to see what he's going to be producing. I think people who are writing him off you can't do that. You can be upset about why they're leaving, but you can't say, "Oh, he's rubbish, he's this, he's that," because we don't know. It could completely change the direction of our club. The one thing I do know is it's a gamble, because I believe Wilder would have had a promotion charge on.
A couple of things. I completely agree with everything you've said. The Harley Dean interview that you're referring to is an under the cosh interview, isn't it? I think that's been clipped up online, but you're saying you've listened to the full thing. I haven't had a chance to listen to the full thing yet. So just if anybody wants to go back and have a look at that, that's Under the Cosh, really well-known podcast. I'm sure if you're watching the Ramble, you'll know about Under the Cosh. But I thought we'd spoken on stream about the Wilder out, Selles in, but I'm not convinced we have yet, Paul. I think it was the conversation that we had that that I went before I went on stream the other day to discuss it. I think it was the morning after or something like that. So you, and I don't mean to sort of push you into any sort of category, because you'll feel how you feel about it, but you can very much see positives now in the new direction. Doesn't mean you think it definitely should have happened, or you wouldn't have been happy if Wilder stayed, but you have sort of, and it were a little bit of an eye-opener for me, because I think everybody recognises I'm quite emotionally attached to Wilder, rather than can always see it in terms of, and loads of people fall into this category because of how good he was for us in the past, and the connection he has to the club, and the way he makes people feel about the club. You sometimes get drawn in by that, and I'm prime for that. You were able to look at it a different way and sort of strip it down, and, well, if this is a bit more matter of fact, if this is what's going to happen, then what positives can we pull out of it? I love that. Dave, you won't mind me saying as well, you've done exactly the same. I think you've weighed up both scenarios, can see arguments for and against. Again, wouldn't have been upset if Wilder had stayed at all, but he hasn't. And I think that sets the tone nicely for tonight's dynamic, for any comments that come in or anything like that, or anybody that wants to put any questions to us, because I always try and see all sides of it, and you two lads have been primary in sort of making me see all sides of it as well. So I think it's only fair that I sort of acknowledge that, and that you were two of the first ones to sort of say, look, we dust ourselves down, and this is the situation we're in. What positives can we see from it? Where could we possibly go under Selles? It might be a higher ceiling, and that's no disrespect to Wilder, but it could well be, like Paul says, the start of a new AI data-driven recruitment analysis. And yes, names might not excite you off the page straight away. I've just done a 10-minute transfer video earlier this afternoon on Topku from Besiktas that we've been linked to, the left-footed centre half. It doesn't jump off the page at people because we don't he's not a household name in England. If we'd have gone for a Premier League defender who's played in Europa Cup this season and played, 28 times in Premier League, we'd all be really excited about it. I'm not saying Super League in Turkey is the same level as the Premier League, but he's played in Europa League and he's done well, and he's played 8 times in Europa League, so he's not a bad player. Besiktas, one of the biggest clubs in Turkey, so there's something about him, and maybe you just get a little bit more value in some of these deals. So it's that's one that's coming out tomorrow morning. 10 minutes transfers does return to the channel, but it were more a case of setting the tone that the king is dead, long live the king is a line that stuck with me when Lee Edridge said it. And Ruben Selles is here now, and we have to not only try and get his heads around it, but try and sort of look excited about how the future can look, rather than, oh my God, what is this board doing? Which I know none of us are of that mindset, but we see it in the fan base. And I'm not going again. There were a lot of that. I'm not going. I'm not. My season ticket can nanas now. None of this. I think we've just got to try and embrace it as best we can. It's going to be different. It's going to be completely different to what we used to. But I think we've got to try and take it on. So Joe started us off with, hear me out. Sellers likes a presser and a ball carrier in midfield. Peck, Blaster, Gus, Cal, and Davis, and Brooks, etc. Who says no to Vinny at centre back? Dave stuck his hand up straight away. He has the build and can pass his way out. Vinny Souza at centre back. Sort of, I for one, just on this, I'm sick of square pegs in round holes, and I would like to see Vinny Souza in his best position as a 6, seeing if he can clear up. From what we understand, Sellers wants to play with 2 8s. Which for those that don't understand the terminology, because it can get a little bit jargony, 8s are your centre midfielders that like to press on and try and arrive late in the box and carry the ball forward in the sort of second half in your opponent's half of the field. Not quite a 10 that's higher up behind the strikers, but an 8 is a more attack-minded centre midfielder, for want of a better way of putting it. A 6 is somebody who sweeps up a little bit and tries to nab the ball off the opponent and probably give it to the 8s or give it to the wingers or whoever it is that he's playing alongside. So a 6 is more of a defensive midfielder, for want of a better way of putting it, or the most simplistic way of putting it. Vinny Souza is that idea. If it's true what we've heard about Sellers wanting 2 8s, he needs a 6 in there. He needs a defensive midfielder to shield the defense and to block, protect the win the ball back and progress the play up the field. There's nobody better in our squad than Vinny Souza to do that, surely. And if it's the question is really, and I appreciate it's not what Joe's asking, but who does that job if Vinny Souza goes? Is there anybody in our squad currently that could do that job? Or do we have to then start looking for an alternative in the market?
I
think so.
I heard, sorry, Dave, I heard that he likes he wants a playmaker in that position. That's my understanding. He likes
In which position?
In that deep line role. He likes someone who's
like an Ollie Norwood.
Yeah, but well, Ollie Norwood was
like a dictator at the back.
Yeah, someone who's got a wide range of passing.
Okay.
Dictates the play more. Joe, what's his name? Roden, not Roden. Who was the lad who went to Leeds from Bournemouth?
Joe Rothwell.
Joe Rothwell. That's it. I think for me, that's who I had in my head as someone who can do that kind of thing.
Okay.
And he could be someone that might become available potentially. I don't
know. Joe Rothwell would be a great addition for us. I think we are stacked in centre midfield. It's just, are we going to have the players suited to the job that he wants to do? I think I would be concerned. I don't mind a playmaker that sits deep at all, but that flies. You can't have a playmaker and 2 8s because you've no ball winner in there. So that wouldn't gel with what he's. And it might just be an initial thought process of his, really. But it's an interesting take because who was he had previously? At Hull was that Alzate that used to do that used to sit deep and sort of spread the play for him, I suppose, in that 6 role maybe. Dave, any thoughts on obviously Vinny Souza at centre half first and foremost? That was Joe's shout, but how you feel? Is there anybody better in that 6 than Vinny? And are you on Sky with
just a very quick
still?
Am I?
You are blurry and
must be because I'm having a nightmare with you guys.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're all right.
But... Am I audible? Because that's all that really matters.
Yes. Just about, mate. Just about.
If you can hear me, we're all right. Okay. Without going off on too much of a quick tangent, who'd heard of an L when you're talking about this lad from Besiktas?
Well said.
So he might be brilliant. I think Blaster could play that holding midfield role very well. I'd argue Peck possibly could as well, but certainly Blaster.
So if we lost Vinny, you wouldn't be really well. You wouldn't be concerned about Blaster sitting in that role and doing it as a.
I think Blaster Blaster would be excellent there. And I think if he's going to play with 2 8s, I think we've got the best 8 in the league by a mile
That's been playing on left wing.
in Gus Arm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
by an absolute country mile.
I think Blaster sitting in that 6, when you say it in that context, covers both the job that I'm after with the ball winner and the job that Paul's after.
Blaster with O'Hare and Hamer in front of him.
Yeah, but O'Hare isn't an 8, is he? Is a 10. You go I think Blaster in the 8. I think Blaster in the 8. But I can see Blaster in the 6 because he can win the ball. He can go on the half turn, and he can spread play like Paul's talking about as well. He does that job as well. So it won't surprise me at all if Vinny Souza doesn't line up for Sheffield United next season to see Ollie Arblaster as the sitter in the middle. Won't surprise me one bit. Stevie Holmes says, just hope Selles gets off to a flyer because if he gets it wrong, the lane will become toxic very fast. However you simplify, however you simply have to back the gaffer no matter what. Up all the rambles, like and subscribe. Thank you, pal.
That's a good point, that.
Ruben Selles will be a good manager for us, says Maury. Don't get why Ruben is getting a lot of stick due to his tenure with Southampton. Me personally, I thought he was chucked in at the deep end. Then I'm reading he's done a good job despite Reading were riddled with financial trouble. And don't even get me started on Hull. He was destined not to do great and ended up getting the sack because their owners are as much use as a glass hammer when it comes to help. Hence why I think he will do well with him being backed. And to inherit a hungry, youthful squad and add a few additions, he will be fine. Up the blades, up the ramble, up the 3 Mardy blades, like and subscribe. It's worth it. Thank you, Maury. Yeah, good point there, Maury. Getting a little bit frustrated with people's preconceived ideas about Ruben Selles. It's understandable if you just look at it on paper, a bit like Paul was talking about earlier. But there's context to it all. There is a little bit like when people talk about Wilder's stints at Watford and Borough. I can give you context to all them as well, personally, because I want to be able to back the best manager I've ever seen. But in this respect, in terms of Ruben Selles as well, you could argue, you can sit and talk about his record at Hull being, you know, he came in when they were bottom, like Dave mentioned on Radio 5 just an hour ago. Came in when they were bottom. So obviously that they had the worst record in the league. That is probably the easiest thing to work out of everything I'm about to say. Took them up to 13th, 14th in the form table in his short time there. This is a team that's on the floor in terms of confidence as well, by the way. They had the 4th best defensive record in the league, and that is what got them out of trouble. So they were shipping goals. We've heard that from Hull fans who've come on the channel and told us about Ruben Selles. He completely sorted that out for him. And to be honest, with a much better squad, if he tightens us up at the back, we were really tight at the back for the first half of the season. And across the season, it still looks like we've had a great defensive record. But in reality, our defensive record was built on the first half of the season. If he can do that for us, the talent that we've got in the squad, even without a plan, and this is no slight on Wilder, but without a plan, we can score goals, and we know it because we've seen it. You've got Gus Hamer on the field, you've got Callum O'Hare, you've got Tyrese Campbell. There are players that cause serious damage at this level in the final third. All you need to do is sort out the back. And we've got Michael Cooper in goal for one. So that's first major thing sorted out. Go on, mate.
I think the most exciting thing that I've obviously listening to pros talk about him being the best coach that they've had. That's a massive positive for me. But also the fact that he came to the lane, and we were there, and it was an appalling game from our point of view.
Yep.
But he had a plan, and he did well against the better sides in the division because there was a plan. I think some of the frustration this season for us is that going to the Premier League would have been quite fearful because we lost all 4 against the two teams who we were closest to,
which ultimately cost us promotion.
Yeah, obviously the week from hell and the 4 games against those guys, but we lost and we were well beaten, and I think he clearly showed up with a plan on how and targeted certain parts of our team, which he's alluded to, and knew how to get those results. So I think he's obviously got a formula that can go and upset sides particularly those who like to have a lot of possession of the ball, which if we did go to the Premier League one day, touch wood, he'd have plans and ideas on how to do that. He's a really, really smart guy. He's quite studious of the game, I believe. He comes across that way. And yeah, and I think if you go to the Premier League, unlike some other coaches, Vinny Company, et al., you've got to have a plan. You got to go. You got to have a plan on how you're going to beat the team that you're up against. Not, oh, this is how we play. Let's do this. You got to have a plan. Because without one, you're getting nothing.
You mentioned in our call the day after the decision had been made, or the announcements had been made, should I say? Because me and Dave were on stream and talking about it and reacting to it live as the statements are coming in and everything else. You mentioned to me on our call the following day that you have to be able to get close to the teams that are above you and that you're fighting against. It can't always be. And I understand it gets you so far and almost got us over the line anyway, beating everybody but the top two. But you rightly said, if we'd have gone up to the Premier League, those are the two teams that we are targeting as our easiest 3 points next season. They have to be the ones that we definitely get 3 points off to even. And like you said, we were well beaten. It wasn't just, or we didn't get the rub of the green. Look, in the second Leeds game, we dominated, but that wasn't sustained. It's a little bit like the Sunderland game. We dominated for. Do you not agree, Paul?
No, I do agree. I agree
for 60 minutes, certainly 35 minutes. I think we were the better team for 60 minutes, and I think for the last third, they absolutely bossed us. Go on.
It's this, but that, and I said to you about this as well. Is when Wilder showed up, he talked about our injury record and how it was poor and all these other things.
Yeah,
my worry is that there's a reason. There has to be a reason at the end of 45 matches or whatever. There has to be a reason why certain players are not in the right condition to see 95 minutes through.
Yeah.
And you and I, we all watched it. We saw against Leeds. We dominate the game for an hour.
Yeah.
And then we run out of juice and they go one bang, bang. That's that. Sunderland, we dominate for an hour, 70 minutes. All of a sudden, best players start leaving the field, rubbing hamstrings.
Yeah, Gus and Ty.
And the wheels fall off. And there's a pattern. Why are these players how can they get to this deep into the season and not be able to last 90 minutes?
I don't want to start a unprecedented rumor, but I will always be honest here, as we all are. Do you think there's a touch of the Paul McGrath about Gus Hamer? And by that I mean he's not expected to do the same levels of work as other players. Paul McGrath was injury related, and they wrapped him in cotton wool essentially. Gus Hamer is he given special allowance? I don't mean necessarily his diet or his exercise or anything in particular, but is he given certain leniencies because of how good he is? Is he not being picked up by saying, mate, you have to get your levels down or you're not going to be playing? Is he just guaranteed to be? Does he know he can show up and be Gus? And if he does that for 60 minutes, it's going to be good enough at championship level. Is the motivation there to be the best version of himself? Because in my opinion, and this is just my pure speculation, but if Gus Hamer turns up as fit as he could do, he will lead us by the nose to promotion. He is a Premier League player all day long if he is fit and can get through games and works hard enough. And look, I know he posts all these videos about him training and stuff like that. I've no doubt that he puts the required amount of work in. I'm not saying he's lazy. I'm not saying anything else. But you look at Ronaldo is the ultimate example. He is the peak of physical fitness. He gets every drop of his quality out of his game. He's still 40, 41. He's still playing and scoring for Portugal, and winning international competitions. Gus Hamer could not. I'm not saying he could be Ronaldo, obviously, but what I'm saying is he could be at the peak version of himself, and I don't think we've seen it. I don't think we have seen Gus Hamer at maximum speed. Anybody that, like, we've had a close relationship with one Leeds as a channel, Connor's saying, look, a lot of Leeds fans who come in here and comment, he's half a stone overweight, and he can't get around the pitch like we would expect him to. But he'll pick up the ball. in the final third, he'll go past 2 players and put one in top corner, or he'll score one of the best free kicks we've seen at the Lane right in the postage stamp against his former club, Coventry. And that's what you remember. And he does win you games. But how many more points could we have picked up if Gus Hamer he's won the EFL Championship Player of the Year? Rightly so, to a lot of biased Blades fans. If it's just based on ability, he walks it. If it's based on performance across all metrics, I'm not sure he does, personally. And maybe I'm being harsh, but I'm just being honest. Any
Yeah,
thoughts?
my cousins yesterday, they said to me, if you could safeguard one and keep one for next season, who would it be? And they all said Vinny. They all think Vinny's
Really?
I said, I think Hamer
Hamer.
is everything in terms of, I don't think we get anywhere near where we've got to this season without him, because of what he
I
brings to
agree.
the team.
And when I'm criticising him, it's like criticising your own child, because it don't mean I don't love him, because I do. We
Yeah.
would be a much worse team without Gus Hamer. But it's just a frustration that I've got in me, because I think he could be so much more. And that probably would end up with Sheffield United losing him. I think we are going to benefit this season, in all honesty, this closed season, by him not being the peak performer that he could be, because I don't think teams will come in and pay the money that we'd want. But I'd rather he'd got us promoted by being the best Gus Hamer and then gets interest when we're a Premier League side.
He's the one that I fear could fall foul of the system. So when you hear about the high intensity sprints, the job that you're going to have to do for the team next season under the new manager,
Yeah.
he's the one that I go, O'Hare's made for this. Vinny is made for this. Hamer is not made for it, in my opinion.
He's not,
So
but surely a manager under so much pressure, because Selles has come in and he has got the weight of the world on his shoulders now. He's following Wilder. He's following a 92-point season. He can't, as massive a call as it would be, you can't leave Gus Hamer out of the side.
No.
Surely.
For me though, you might see, because like you say, you can't drop him, but well, he can, and he might, but
I'm undroppable.
you might even end up front. That is what I think could happen. I think he could go and play behind a striker in the 10, and you might see him used as a striker potentially. I don't know if he's going to have the legs for the midfield job. That Dave's pulling a face at me. I don't know why.
No, I don't know why. I've talked a long time about I'd love to see him in the 10. It's just it clashes with Callum O'Hare's role, really.
I think Callum could go and drop deeper and do the job
there,
that
Dave.
he might need him to do.
It looks like there's a nasty smell up Dave the Nose's nose. Go on.
Let's say it was just with you saying striker. I'm thinking now. Controversial opinion or controversial comment. I think if he's still here at the end of the summer window, it tells you everything you need to know. He will not be a long-standing Premier League player, because we came down and we kept him. We were all worried about keeping him in this release clause that he supposedly had, and we kept him. If we get through this next one, I just don't think the appetite's there from the Premier League sides looking at him thinking he's what we need.
Is that because the appetite's not there from him? Do you think he's naturally one of these players that's too good?
Maybe the appetite's too big.
Well, I automatically think I think it's a different example, and I'm not putting him in the same league, but Gaza.
Yeah.
And possibly Rooney.
So do you think so? Yeah, so that probably answers my next question. We're going to say, do you think he's naturally one of the, because you get a lot of these he's naturally a player that's way too good for the Championship but not quite good enough for the Prem? Or do you think it's more he's in that category anyway, and if he pushed himself harder, he could be a Premier League player?
You don't know, because we don't know if there's a specific medical reason, whether there's a muscle thing, because it tends to be a lot of the time he goes off holding his hamstring, doesn't he? So whether he's a bit susceptible there, I don't know.
It might just be his build. It might just be the way he's set, might it? Yeah, and I'm being unjustly harsh, but I don't know. It niggles me that I think there's so much in there, and we see it, don't we? It's like an ongoing frustration that I've got. And some weeks he pulls it out, and some weeks he absolutely amazes me. And then next week to see him be so inconsistent, we know how good you are. We know how good you are. You are the best player at this football club, probably by a bit of a distance, if we're honest, in terms of natural talent. And it's just it's frustrating that it don't. But he won't be playing for Sheffield United if he was a week in week out performer, would he? So
No, well, it's intriguing. Well, when we spoke about Tommy Doyle, didn't we, on the video, and the Wolves head coach has turned around and said, passing, final ball, striking, he's got it. He can do it.
Yeah.
But if we want to play two in midfield, he's not for us because he's not physically able to. He hasn't got the output in the legs that we need him to have to play in a two in the Premier League. That's interesting because that is almost where Gus may in the Premier League. You can't carry luxury players in. If you've got a system that requires a certain amount of output, one player not being at the level can ruin the whole shooting match. So I think personally that is what right in what you're saying. Ability wise, there is no doubt that he is technically a lot better than a lot of Premier League midfield players. But it's the engine and it's the affecting the play in and out of possession. Has he got that? Is that enough now for Premier League teams to go? He ain't got the running stats. He ain't got the sprints in him. He ain't got this. He ain't got that. Because, like you've said, it'd be an easy pickup for at least 5 or 6 sides in the Premier League because they could afford him. He won't be on big wages because he plays for Sheffield United, and it'd be an easy pickup. And he's a quality player who can change matches. But it'll be about that, and it'll be, if Tommy Doyle's getting the bullet, he's a lot more physically. For me, Tommy Doyle's a lot more physically capable.
yes,
Or as if not more capable than Hamer, and he's getting pied because
more naturally fit into
he hasn't got the output levels, and that's like, hang on a minute, alarm bells for a side who are in the Premier League. I was saying to Ben,
big part of yours, isn't it? You need athletes. That's what you were saying.
You do.
Yeah.
I thought Ipswich had a right good go at it, looking at the recruitment that they did. Best of the Championship, the young players at big clubs who aren't going to get minutes, and you can sell that to their agents, etc.
Yeah.
That they're going to be Premier League football players. But they were nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. And whatever anyone tells me now, it is a physical thing. That the difference is the physicality of the league. In that, when you, like you said, used to go up and think, oh, we've got these 6 home games, we'll win them ones because we're at home to Crystal Palace and we're at home to these ones. If you look at all these sides now, they are physical monsters. And that'll be the reason that Gus Hamer has not got a Premier League move, in my opinion, because he's definitely good enough.
He's going to have to get promoted into the Premier League now, isn't he? I think probably with us, hopefully, if that happens. Obviously, that's what I mean. If he's going to be a Premier League footballer, it will be to be promoted into it, unless, like in January or something, somebody feels like they really need him because they're struggling or they're close or whatever it might be. It might be a Burnley or somebody like that, but. You're right. It's a little bit like the Liam Rosenior conversation we were having when we were talking about potential new managers. Who's going to take him? Who's going to take him at Premier League level? He might have to get promoted into the Premier League. So I think Gus Hamer is probably in a similar conversation when it comes to players. It's, can you rely on his unreliability, really, in terms of fitness and in terms of engine? He does make a difference. He has got the talent, but talent isn't everything, is it? I suppose. Anyway, we are getting sort of sidetracked, and I don't mean to go off on too much of a tangent. I'm not sure about Selles, says Chris, but I'll give him a chance. Bumped into a couple of Hull fans yesterday. They said that he saved them from relegation, but can't see him doing anything at a big club like United. Interesting. Evening, guys, says Matt. Hope all is good. It's very well, thank you, pal. Hope you are too. Ben says, evening, lads. Feel very optimistic for the Sellers era. Also looking forward to our new transfer approach and not just shopping in the UK market. I like the link with Top Coup. If it's true, up the blades, up all the rambles. Like and subscribe. Thank you, pal. Rob says, evening, guys. I think he'll do well for us, but I'm slightly concerned about the fitness levels of several key players with Ruben's high-intensity style of play. Any concerns from you guys? Up all the rambles. Something that Paul talked about quite a bit with Benjamin Bloom, your mate Benjamin Bloom, Paul. Dave, have you any sort of concerns on that? I know Paul can elaborate on his own point if he wants to, but any of your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he's right. I think the two big ones in Ty and Gus, them not seeing out 90 minutes regularly is definitely a concern. But there's going to be a new set of coaches around there, so let's see. Hopefully they can get those guys up to speed, but also that the guys that we bring in are capable of, and I'm sure they will be, of playing that sort of high intensity style, so that if we do have to nurse Gus through games or tie through games, that we've got a proper plan B for when they go off. Because I think that's what we suffered with last season. They went off, and it was like there's a noticeable drop off, and no way of adapting to who was on the pitch.
Yeah.
It's just like for like, and we'll just muddle our way through. So hopefully there's plans in place, so we're not stuck like that. But it's got to be a concern, hasn't it? With the evidence points to it.
Yeah, it does. It does. Roy says, boys, I for one can't wait. I'm interested to see what happens in the transfer window. Let's hope that we get that front foot, exciting football that we've been promised. We need some power and pace. Dave Vinter says, don't think we'll lose any players unless Ruben doesn't want them. I think we'll be okay for next season as long as he's backed up the Blades, up the Ramble. I think we do lose one or two, David. I think it's natural when you are having to balance the books somewhat, and particularly if we want to do a bit of trading. I think it's very rare that you see a second season parachute team not lose a player or two. Lads, what do you think in terms of who we might lose in the summer? You know, 1, 2, 3. Have you got any names that you think might go? I personally think Anel leaves. I think there's a big possibility Vinny or Siddy leaves as well, and that might be the 2. Hopefully not the 3, but I could probably deal with the 2. Paul, nodding.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I agree. I think
Gus stays. I'm confident Gus stays.
Yeah, I think Gus stays for the reasons we've said. I think that it costs a lot of money to get him out of the club. That's the first thing. Anel with a year to go on his deal, if I should imagine they'll probably be offering him to clubs, because if he's not going to sign a deal, recoup some of the money, and obviously reinvest in the team. That's just, for me, that's just sensible. I think that. Unless the fees around him are so meager that you just think, oh, we'll go again. If we get promoted, he might then sign potentially. I don't know. That could be a gamble that they take, but I think he will be moving on, Anel, personally, because
a lot of work to do at centre half, then, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
True, we're looking to upgrade Jack Robinson as well. Then that's at least 2 that we need, at least 2. So a lot of work to do.
Minimum 2, probably 3.
Yeah.
But again, I wouldn't be surprised if we see people bemoaning the Harry Darling that we haven't pulled a finger out there and done this. I think they'll be looking at, again, foreign markets for players, for these players. I think this is why Selles has been put in charge, is because you can see him. You know, obviously he can speak languages. He's got Spanish and he's English, obviously, and probably more based on where he's worked before. All over Europe.
He can appeal to all different types of player, can he? And sort of try and.
I think so, and I think that's again, if you're looking at a lot of the teams that we're aspiring to, and we speak about, that's the way that they've gone. So I think I'm not surprised. The more I look at it, I'm not surprised there's been a change. And let's face it, and when we talk about the owners, people are saying, and rightly, people are saying, you can't blame Selles. It's not his fault that he's been put in the position. He's coming into a successful team, which is not always the case for a new manager on arrival. Usually they're going into a team that's performing below expectation. He hasn't got to deal with that. He might have a few of the fans on his back quickly if as mentioned in the comment about early success. If you don't get any, then it's going to start being hard work. I think as fans, obviously we're very much emotionally invested in our football team and our club. and they can look at it from a different viewpoint because they might end up being big fans of the club. But initially, it's part of an investment for them, and that doesn't mean that they're not they're going to be trying to make bold and rash decisions. You know, if you and me, if we had some money, for example, if we had our wealth was, say, you know, something stupid like 30 million quid we'd managed to acquire in our life, and we were that was our worth, and someone says, right, come and join the board at Sheffield United, it'll cost you 20 million, that it'll mean a lot to them, this club, because it's and you know what it meant to the Prince. It's not just we support Sheffield United, it's this is my life here, this is everything I've got. So these guys are not going to they're not going to put up with something that they're not happy with, and nor should they, because when you're investing at that level, you've got to have the right to make that decision. And Ben Bloom said it. He said, you give the chairman, the chair people, a pass on it because Wilder was not their choice. He wasn't the one that they wanted. He was in position. He was doing well. Good decision to keep hold of him there. But now they've got to make that. They've made that decision. It's their money. Yeah. And they're going for Selles. And I can see why. It doesn't mean that we all agree. It doesn't mean that we didn't want Wilder. I think again, it's a huge risk that they're taking here, because I think Wilder would have had us in a promotion push this season. Yeah. All the evidence points to that. He's a very capable man. He knows the club, and it may be more of a model that they want to change the way that things are happening at the club.
Absolutely.
Chris was in charge of the whole shooting match, and that's how he wanted it, and that's how it should have been, and he did a bloody good job for us as well. So fair play to him. But if they want more control over the way that things are ran, the people who are in situ around the club, then they've got to be able to make those decisions. And as a football fan, I think it's a real it's an out of left field Selles as an appointment. I think it's a real brave, forward thinking appointment. Doesn't mean it's going to be successful. Okay, he's got to go in and make some big changes to this team and the way the club's ran and the setup of everything. But it's also quite exciting, because if we do end up getting promoted, for example, everyone will forget about all this animosity towards the board for the decision they've made. Because if we're sat top after 10 games, people will be like, oh, well, we're having a bit of this. We're having this. Because
and if that's the case, the board should take the plaudits as well as the manager.
Absolutely. And
the manager will deserve credit, and the board will deserve credit as well.
We've got to go into this season optimistic about the things that are going to happen, and you can't always look back at other clubs and other things and go, oh well, he didn't do very well. Nearly every manager in existence has had a bad club, or he's had a spell. Eddie Howe and people like they've all been somewhere and it didn't quite work the way they wanted it to.
Right.
But there was a reason that they were successful, and there's sometimes faces fit, and for the new model, I think Sayers is going to be a good option. But we've got to enter it with that sort of optimism. There's no point Saga going, oh, he's going to be rubbish, because we've got no idea. He's not had this level of talent in a squad to work with before. At Southampton, he was dead before he'd started. They were already down, weren't they? Then it was like he
picked him up slightly as well. It was never going to happen, but he picked him up slightly. And another thing as well, Chris Wilder came into Sheffield United in Premier League and couldn't save us from relegation either. Nobody loves Wilder more. But what is the difference between Ruben Selles going in at Southampton and not being able to get him out of trouble, and Chris Wilder going in at Sheffield United and not being able to get us out of trouble? So that, you know what I mean?
We could have had Pep Guardiola, mate. We were going down.
Well, that
wouldn't have made any difference.
That's exactly my point. And would Pep Guardiola be seen as, what a joke? Do you know what I mean? It's not, is it? It's not Selles is a joke. It's a really tough set of circumstances that he walked into, similar to what Chris Wilder walked into at Sheffield United. And, if you look at the optics, and you want to sort of present it a certain way, Chris Wilder has come into Sheffield United, got us relegated from the Premier League, and then couldn't get us back up. That is not the context at all. But for somebody else that's looking to appoint Wilder next, maybe, and want to push back on it, that's a clear thing that they will be saying blind as to avoid the context, like some are saying about Selles. If you understand the situation, he got 92 points. He beat Sheffield Wednesday twice. We were just beaten by 2 better teams in the league. That's the only thing that stopped us going up. So
Sayers has been chucked into the oven from in every club he's gone to.
Yeah,
so far.
all three sides.
Southampton, Reading was a financial disaster, and the players there loved him, and he did really well for them. Nearly got them promoted. Hull, they were bottom, so I think he's paid his dues, as it were, when it comes to managerial positioning and what he's gone into and had to deal with at the point when he's gone in. It's a different set of circumstances for him now. He'll have a top 3 or 4 budget in the division. He's acquiring, or sorry, he's taking over what I believe to be our best squad at the start of a season that I can remember. I think the number of saleable assets, the team as it stands at the minute, we haven't gone in with this level of talent. It's certainly not into a championship campaign before, in my opinion.
Yeah, championship campaign is a good shout. I would argue it with the Premier League season. Obviously, when we went on to finish 9th, I think that was a fantastic squad. But certainly for the level, I can't remember us having a better squad. I can't in terms of balance as well. S17 says, evening. Sorry, Dave, were you going to say something then, pal?
No, it's a toss up between that and the 1920, was it, when we went up?
18-19.
18-19. So that was a pretty strong squad, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. And that was
you're right.
Of the 1920 squad as well, weren't it? So
he is coming into a strong squad. I was just going back to the point you were saying about who we think will potentially lose. I think the 2 you picked out are probably fair. I can't shake the fact that I think we'll lose a third, and it'll be someone we don't want to lose, because I think some of them just did that well last season that there's going to be interest.
I fear for City. I fear for him, because I think if he gets a big offer, we know he's a London boy. We know West Ham are rumoured to be sniffing. I worry about him going there too early and getting bombed out. Tommy Doyle style.
Big ask. Big ask.
It is a big ask. S17 Blade says, evening 3 Mardy Blades, please tell me you've heard some transfer movement. Getting worried now that all the best frees and top players have moved or been linked elsewhere, but heard nothing about us up the Ramble. Things are starting to take shape in terms of names. We did a 10-minute transfer on Ash Phillips on Friday, which is now a no-go. Alan Nixon squashed that. Take that with a pinch of salt, obviously, but Alan Nixon squashed that this morning in terms of Thomas Frank wants to take a look at him now that he's in at Tottenham. But there is Emirhan Topku.
Just on that, very quickly, before I forget, that kind of thing doesn't surprise me. That doesn't necessarily mean he won't come. A new manager coming in somewhere is always going to want to look at the entirety of the squad that he's got and players coming back in off loan. It might just mean that he comes a little bit later on rather than imminently.
And it's exactly the same as Ruben Selles going into United. He might be looking at players like Andre Brooks and Louis Marsh and Ryan One and these sort of players and deciding which one of my young lads am I willing to let out to a team in and around us or League One or something like that. So we will be doing our own squad assessment. He might want to see Jack Robinson in training before he bombs him out. He might want to he might want to have a look at Ryan Brewster or have a look at the history of Ryan Brewster in a United shirt and see whether it's worth continuing with these contract negotiations, because he might want to keep him. I think Ryan Brewster will go now, but Sellers might want to make a strong play to keep him if he sees him in his side. So you're right, Dave. When a new manager goes in, everything is back in the conversation, isn't it, in terms of current situation? Let's assess what we've got first before we then can establish what we need, which might be the reason, S17, that you haven't seen any players come in already, because it's very early. But we are certainly being linked already to players. Top Cool, like I mentioned. We've also been linked with Alfie Devine. There's a Hungarian or Bulgarian right back that's been talked about that's not been officially named yet. There's another player that I'm aware of that will likely get circulated next week that we are talking to or keen on talking to. So there are a lot of things happening in the background. Doesn't necessarily mean all will come to fruition. A lot of these things as well that we have to bear in mind, and it's something we say every window, we will be having conversations with, we might want one player for one position. We might have a top target, then we'll have a second choice, then we'll have a third choice. We might end up talking to 15 players for that one position to get them ready if all the 14 fall before. So it will never go that far down to, I'm exaggerating, but we'll have a list of about 5 players for each position that we want, and we'll probably start speaking to all 5 at the same time. So this top coup, for example, might be our third choice for a left centre half, but it's the name that's got released. It's the name that's in the ether because his agent's found out and he wants to drum up some more interest. It might end up being a left field signing that was actually our number 1 target that nobody heard of because it never got out. So there's all sorts of things in the ether. That's why you have to take a lot of these transfer rumours with a pinch of salt until it gets heavily linked by the right sources. So that's why we take everything on face value to a degree, but always be aware that it could come back to you. Charlie says, evening, gents. I'm looking forward to this transfer window. Who's going to be brought in as it's got to aid his vertical attacking play? Tactical flexibility and high pressing, high reward system. It's going to be very interesting and a fascinating time being a Blade up the Ramble. Charlie, you talk so much sense, and I cannot wait till you make your Ramble debut. I know you keep teasing it, but as a Platinum Rambler and a long-time supporter of the channel, I am really looking forward to it. So, yeah, completely agree. You got some nods from the lads there as well. Rob says, I really don't share your optimism, lads. I sadly have no desire to set foot back in the lane anymore, and I've been going for over 50 years. I'm really sad to hear that, Rob, and it's your prerogative to feel however you want to, and you might not want to feel that way, but it's your prerogative to feel that way. I just hope that if you do decide not to go, that they can turn you around a little bit. And yes, they've taken a really tough decision to fire a manager that has meant so much to so many of us, but they've done it for the right in their minds. They've done it for the right reasons. So they're not doing it to set us back. They are trying to make us better in the long term. You might not agree with it. A lot of us might not agree with it per se, but this is the situation we're in. And as Blades, we have to get behind them and back them because it's unproven. So we don't know whether it's a bad decision yet. We don't know whether it's a great decision because it could be either. But we just have to wait and see how it plays out. Roy says, agreed, Charlie. She talks a lot of sense, that girl. Max says, Jamie Ireland staying, Des Taylor leaving. What you guys make of this? This is a story, another story in that was circulated in our Platinum group this morning, that Alan Nixon is saying that Jamie Hoyland, the scout that obviously ex-United player, the scout that Wilder brought in as part of his recruitment overhaul, may have had some involvement in some of the real quality signings that we brought in last summer as well. We can't forget that. So Jamie Hoyland looks to be staying at United after rumours that he might leave as Wilder left the building. And Des Taylor is also not going to be in the mix, according to Nixon. I'll be honest, I would be pleased to see this happen. I've not heard great things about Des Taylor personally. I know him and Wilder didn't necessarily see eye to eye, but I always thought he was very lucky to be one of the lads that the new owners trusted with a football opinion. And some of the names and some of the links that we had that Des Taylor was pushing, I'll be honest, underwhelming is strong, but completely wrong as well. When I say underwhelming, it's hard to say anything without sort of, overstepping the mark. But I don't mean it wouldn't be big signings, because it would, but it would be signings that you think, why on earth are we spending so much money in this area or on that player? Because I just thought it was misdirected in terms of what Des Taylor saw for Sheffield United and what we should be doing as a club. And there's two completely different trains of thought as well. There's Wilder's direction and Sellers' direction. I don't mind either of them, just not Des Taylor's direction for me. That's the way I felt about the whole thing. So I'm pleased to see that he may not, hopefully won't be involved long term. And we can potentially look, if we are going down the director of football route, which is I suppose where this conversation could go, may well be looking for a credible, experienced man to oversee the football operation of the club. I'd like to say Stephen Bettis has done a great job of that over the last 10 years or so, but Stephen Bettis is a higher position than that. So he's acted in that role, but that is not below him or beneath him, but it wasn't part of his duty. So to bring in a technical director, sporting director, director of football, however you class it, somebody that can be that constant. So when the manager does go, if we get promoted, I used this example last time. If we get promoted to the Premier League under Ruben Selles and he keeps us up the following season, absolutely brilliant. That's the peak of what we're after as a club. That's the best we can hope for, I think, at this moment in time. If Valencia come in and pinch him, I think it was Leo I was talking to about it. If Valencia come in and pinch him, we want to be in a position where we're saying, oh, no, stay, Ruben. Please stay with us. That's unfathomable at the minute for some of the fans, but that's the way it'll be. If we've got somebody in that position, that technical director, that sporting director, we may already have somebody lined up as the natural successor. That's how clubs like Brighton have done it before. They had Roberto De Zerbi come in and they didn't blink when they lost Graham Potter, who was widely regarded as a brilliant manager for them. Thomas Frank has left Brentford. There's some eyebrows raised at who they're looking to replace him with. Keith Andrews being a big name linked as well. But don't be surprised if that appointment is a roaring success as well, because of the way that that club operates, particularly in terms of recruiting players. So who's to say they won't be able to do it with managers? Do you think this is just as big an appointment, the Des Taylor role, if you like, as the manager himself, or if not more important? Dave, I'll come to you first, mate. How important do you think it is to get somebody in that position?
Very, and I think what the owners need to do is create a club structure where, when I say best in class, I don't mean the best manager in the world, because that's not realistic at this point. But for the class that we're operating in, we need to be employing people who are best in class in lots of key areas and create a structure that survives, where theoretically those guys should do such a good job that they're picked up by higher level, top end Premier League clubs, and that we then bring somebody in to fill that position. I think this is part of the transition from Wilder, that we're going from somebody who was brilliant at having his hands on everything. That is a risky and unsustainable approach to run any business, let alone a football club. So we need to put the structure is so important. And if Taylor's not worked out, they go out for somebody who, again, maybe as like we seem to have done with Selles, they've got an idea of how they want to recruit in terms of players and develop young players and, develop them into doing well and selling them and making money. We need a director of football who's done some of that, who understands it, has the contacts, the people that you need to speak to. And that's just one key area. But I think we're going to see a big overhaul in the club over the summer off the field.
It's a similar thing to what we're trying to do with these players, isn't it, really? In terms of bringing a £2 million player, turning him into a £20 million player. We want to do the same with managers. We want Ruben Selles to come in with a untapped potential reputation and leave with a real high level potential, real sort of high level standing in the game. He's done it. You want clubs to say he's done a brilliant job with Sheffield United. We're going to come and take him and try and replicate, see if he can do it on a bigger stage with us. And then we want to go and get the next, hugely untapped potential manager and put him in that slot. So hopefully have a higher profile than Selles is now, because we've made that step up, because Selles has done that for us. So that's how the club continues to evolve into it. Apologies, Dave. I weren't smirking. I don't know if you saw me, but I was smirking a little bit while you were talking, because I was moving Man Mountain around in his box. It slumped down in his seat. So I then had to manually move him up, which was fine. But then he was overhanging you a little bit. So I've just tidied everything up.
He can overhang me anytime he wants.
Yeah, steady on. I think he's busy for the time being with that sort of stuff. So there you go, Max. Mark Meldrew says, evening, lads. Hope you're all doing well. Favourite drinks are Straya and love paella. Got to give the bloke a chance at least. Feeling positive that the change might be for the best. Oh, that's a big step for Mark Meldrew, who was very upset when it first got announced.
Do I get to talk about that one then, Jim?
It depends if you can be a bit more succinct with it, mate. Up the ramble, up the positive, Meldrew. Yeah, of course you can, mate. You can always talk about whatever you want on the ramble, mate. Go on. What do you want to say?
Well, no, you went to Dave, and then I got. See you later. We'll go on the next thing now.
Well, I don't think I got to ask Dave the question that you were answering last time either. So I'm on. Only reason being, mate, I'm on comments from 8:01, and it's now 9:06. So yeah, you can answer whatever the question was. Oh, about Des Taylor. Go on, mate. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I'm not in a position to. I haven't got enough information, have I? Because we
No.
don't. These people are doing behind the scenes ever.
But do you? How much importance do you place on the director of Dave? I'm trying to keep it back on track here.
I was just trying to be quick, Jim.
The director of football, technical director. Well, Michael Scott. I'm not going to say it. So, how much importance do you place on that role? I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with the question. Do you think it's as important as the manager? Do you think it's more important for Sheffield United to get somebody in that position?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think it's the modern way that clubs are run. I think for continuity purposes, exactly what Dave said is spot on. In that, when you have somebody with their hands on everything, and that's how they demand it, and that's how it used to be. And if you back in the day, the manager was in charge of everything. Brian Clough said it, didn't he? He had to be across everything. It's kind of like when your business grows almost, and Sheffield United has grown from where it was before. What you want is, Dave spoke about best in class. You want specialists in each area, don't you? And I think part of Wilder's criticism has been his loyalty to certain players and the money that's been spent on certain players, etc. And for every bad one, there's been 3 good ones. Let's remember that as well. But I think that you're right. Managers will move forward. We are a club who we think could be in the top 20 in this country. But if the 3 or 4 at the top, the food chain, the football food chain, see something they like, then people go. That happens.
Not even in this country, though, is it? Like a manager, like a continental manager, if you like Ruben Selles, you can easily see being picked off to go to Spain or anywhere else around Europe, can't you? Really, because it's not as. And I appreciate this isn't necessarily the case anymore. We like Liam Racine here again, but usually British-based managers will remain in the British-based game, or certainly before the last sort of 3-4 years. So yeah, you're right. There's a much more likelihood that we lose a manager should we progress. That should be part of it as well.
I think that might be part of the Wilder decision as well, because I think you'd have trouble getting Wilder to agree to a new set of circumstances. If you want, if they came in the club and went, right, he's bad his hands across who's been appointed here, who's done this, who's done that, who's done the other. You want to change, like Dave says about the overhaul, you want to change 5, 6, 7 members of staff. You want to change the culture of everything. He's used to a certain set of circumstances, isn't he? And it might have been, would he ever agree to this person? Would he clash with them? Would it work? That could be part of the decision and why they've taken it. Sellers might be under a different set of conditions, should we say, to what Wilder's used to at the club, and it may be that they're going to upset some of his best pals and some of the people in and around him. And what does that then do? What happens then? So I feel like it might be feeding into the reason to move him on.
I think from what I understand, obviously Wilder will spot a player, or his team will spot a player collectively and discuss it in depth, and then they will like a Jimmy Dunn, for example. Has he got exactly what we need as a Sheffield United player per se? He's aggressive, he's strong, he's athletic, he can get forward and score goals at set pieces. He's dangerous from this sort. Wilder will identify an individual and want to go for him and sort of hone in on him a little bit. And that's exactly what happened with Jimmy Dunn, for example. What I understand the setup with Selles is he will say, I need a right back that is energetic, that can get up the pitch, that can make sure he's back in position and he tracks his man and all this, whatever criteria he sets. Then the team will go off and find 10 names, for example. They will present those 10 names to the manager and he will have a big say in which one. Well, they say, I suppose, in terms of, right, well, I like the first 3, forget the rest. We'll do a little bit more work on these 3. and then we'll talk to them. I'll make my decision and we'll talk to them. So it's much more of a group effort, but the manager still has the final say, from what I understand. It's just a different way of going about it. He won't say, right, I really like Harry Darling. He might do in the odd, there'll be times where he's worked with a player previously like Alzate, or we might say he would be ideal in this squad and we will place him there. But it's not going to be like Chris Wilder's predominantly been known for using his contacts in the game. What's he like as a player? What's he like in the dressing room? What's his attitude like? How does he train? That was a Chris Wilder approach. That's a lot of people will see that as old school. I think that's quite smart in a lot of ways as well. So I don't think you should just sell it down rivers. And it's just different ways of doing it. Whereas I think Selles will be a lot more analytical in terms of, right, you bring me the 3 players that I want, and I will tell you which of the 3 is the best and which one I want out of those 3. So I just think it's a really interesting approach to it. Ray says, evening, everyone.
Do you
Sorry,
think
mate.
Sellers is more... Sorry.
Go on, mate. Do I think Selles is more?
Sorry, do you think that Sellers is... Are we going down the route of... Because when you speak to a lot of the managers, Wilder in particular talks about characters, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And talks about personalities, and culture carriers is something that he referred to
Love
quite
it.
a lot.
Love it.
Are we of the thinking that Sellers is going to be not as bothered about stuff like that, and is more focused potentially on output, technical quality over personality, and
I think you're probably right.
driving that spirit.
There's nowhere in the data that will tell you what sort of a lad they are, is there? So it might tell you they're unfit, which you can make your own assumptions from, and all this sort of stuff. But as a character, it won't tell you anything about their leadership or anything like that. I still think it will have a huge importance to any manager wanting to recruit a player. Chris Wilder obviously put a huge emphasis on it, but maybe we'll just have to try and pull that out of the discussions and things like that. How do you handle? So we may talk to players they've played. Alfie Devine, for example, we're linked with. I would be disappointed if we didn't talk to Ollie Arblaster about Alfie Devine, because they played together at Port Vale when they were doing well in the first half of that League One season before they both got recalled in the January. I would be disappointed if we're not talking to Ollie Arblaster about it. If we were still talking to Ash Phillips, I would be disappointed if we're not talking to Tom Cannon, who played with him at Stoke. I would be disappointed if we're not doing that sort of, at least in-house discussions about what are they like as that's one of the first things that Wilder would have done in terms of what are they like as a lad. I think you still have to do your due diligence on them as a person rather than, but ultimately, when you strip it all, but I think it counts for a lot that you'll never be able to measure. But we could have a team full of idiots who nobody likes. But if that best 11 in league, then we're not going to know. Are we? We've got an idea of say I won't use current players, but if we know a player's an idiot, for want of a better phrase, because we're a family channel, and not a very nice person, not very good, but he's part of a successful side, we're never going to know about it. That 18-19 team, for instance, if one of them were an absolute arse and was horrible to fans and hid it really well or whatever it was, we're never going to know about it, and it doesn't really matter. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter. I love to think that we've got a team that gets on really well. They're really nice. But you look at Ollie Arblaster, there's no hiding it. Everybody knows he's a brilliant lad, a really, really nice lad. He's a captain of our club. I hope that continues under the Selles era, because I am proud to have him represent our club. Not just because he's a Sheffield United fan, but because he's a really good player and because he carries himself so well. I want strong characters, culture carriers, like you said, Paul, like Wilder was so strong. And I want those players at our club. But I don't know is the honest answer in terms of how much emphasis Selles will place, or Selles, sorry, Dave, will place on that. So we'll have to wait and see. And I'm still, I'm now 75 minutes behind on the comments. Evening, everyone, says Ray. Don't know why, but I'm having a bit of a concern over the new season. Something just doesn't feel right. Target's gone. They haven't. We've chosen not to, mate. We've chosen not to. And the new ones don't fill me with good vibes. Hope I'm wrong. That's fair enough. Being underwhelmed by the names that we're linked to. We actively pulled out of the deals. So Harry Darling, we were in discussions with, chose not to continue them. Jimmy Dunn, same. John Joe Kenny, same. there were wilder signings, undoubtedly, but it was our decision to walk away from the deals. And you could judge that yourself as well as to, is that the right thing to do? That Wilder's been talking to these players, and then before he's even gone, we're pulling out of the deals. But they knew what they were going to do by then, didn't they? Unfortunately. Evening, gents, says Danny. Hope you're all doing well. Ray says, up the blades, up all the rambles, like and subscribe. Thank you, pal. Ian says, evening all, really excited for this new chapter. I feel the board have to back him with whatever he wants, given the decision they made. Could be the most interesting window in our history. Up the ramble, like and subscribe. Thank you, mate. Lewis says, if Ruben goes with a more narrow 4-3-3, you could have O'Hare coming in off the left, Hamer in the middle, but on the same side, then Burrows flying around the outside of them both. Sounds naughty. Have you any ideas as to how we will play? Any sort of...
No.
We haven't, have we? We haven't, and I think that makes it so interesting as well, because it's a complete guess. He's played different ways with... I know people lean on the 4-3-3, like Lewis has mentioned there, and maybe it's just a suggestion from Lewis because of the players we've got. I still think we suit a three at the back with the players that we've got, because I think Burrows and Siriki are born wing backs rather than full backs, but that's just my opinion. It allows us to pad out the midfield. We obviously need the centre backs recruited, but we don't know how he's going to play. We don't know, because he's always gone in and you worked to the tools that he's had. Now, like Dave says, he's usually been firefighting when he's gone in. Now he's got the chance to build. So maybe this will be a team in his vision. Maybe I still think we'll end up with 4 at the back, because I think there's too much work to do with the centre backs. But I'm still really interested to see how we play. But no ideas, lads, on how you think we'll play.
Well, I think a sign of a good manager, and I've said this before, is, you know, there's a pragmatism to working with what you've got, because that's what you need to do. And there's a feeling that you want your best players to be played in the right position, utilised the right way, because they're the difference makers. I think you're right in what you're saying about our fullbacks. I think Siriki and Burrows would solve an issue in wide areas, which has been our problem all season, has been for a while, in terms of who should play where, how do we go about it. I think with those two, they would give us the width that we need without, and because a few of the concerns with Burrows and Siriki is that when they are part of a 4, are they the most... They're not the finished product, are they? They're both young lads, and they've still got a bit to learn in terms of positioning, distances. They would benefit from centre backs who could help them. I think that's been a thing as well this season, in that sense. But yeah, in those wide areas, both we know are brilliant going forward. So yeah, it would suit us to do that. We spoke about it, didn't we, Jim? About a 3-4-1-2 or something like that.
We did, yeah.
We thought, oh, that sounds pretty good considering what we've got. But it'll be intriguing. Like you say, he hasn't just gone, oh, I play, it's not Mike Bassett, I 4-4-2. He's like he's gone in and worked with what he's got. I think those wide areas are still something that he'll desperately be wanting to work on. We've been saying it all year about the way that teams set up now with those 2 wide flyers at the top of the pitch. Leeds United worked for them beautifully, haven't they, this season with them 2. They've had 4 of their best players play in those 2 positions. So, and it makes a real difference to how you go about the attacking.
Nonto and Ramazani on bench. It's just...
Nonto and Ramazani to come on and, you know, obviously can change your game with their ability later on in the game. But it's those 2 wide guys. We've struggled with it. Raksaki, people haven't been... His output was actually really good when you look at the minutes and his numbers, but he's been very, very inconsistent. Brooks is the same. He was in, he was out, shake it all about. We had BBD, who was cast down for that left spot, didn't play him there, played him on the right. It was... And again, Hamer, we've scratched around for a solution in those areas all season, and that type of formation might have helped us out a little bit. But you know, I think Wilder wanted to prove to everybody that he had more than just these, you know, the one system that he became kind of famous for. I think he did try and change things up this season. He was talking a lot about how he can coach other systems, etc. Do I think it was the right system for the players that we've got? I think that's an argument that I believe that we didn't really get the best out of certain players this season. For those reasons. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see what he says. You know, we'll see who he goes and gets. But two wide flyers would be good. I think it'd be a good statement to make in the transfer market.
Well said, mate. New season always exciting, says Dave. But changing managers in the middle of a rebuild, I think we need to lower expectations for this season now. Yeah, Disco Dave saying this. I think he'd said in the chat that he's now sort of comfortable with a 6th to 10th finish in the league this season. Dave, come on, Mr. Positive usually as well. I know you're trying to be a realist there, but go on, Dave.
Nah, we'll be in the mix. I'm positive of it.
Yeah, me too.
We'll definitely be in the mix.
Nice this evening, gents. Hope we're all well. Finally cooled down a bit today. What do you reckon the first signing will be? What do we reckon? Up the Blades, up the Ramble, up behind the Ramble, like and subscribe on the Selles train. Well, obviously, there's a lot of work to do throughout the squad, like everybody will have, Nige. So it's hard to say. When you say what, I assume you mean the position rather than who. I suppose what do
on
we
the pitch?
what do we most need? What do we most need? It doesn't necessarily mean they'll be first. But it's got to be a centre half on it. I'd say right back as well, to be honest.
Three,
yeah. He's right. He's right. At least 3 centre backs, 4 if Fennell goes.
So that's if you're getting, we've got Jack Robinson.
Is there any credence to this about Selles' style? Is it more the loans are going to be interesting because you've earmarked it as well. A few frees and some good loans, and we've got a side to challenge again. Yeah. I think the loans are going to be interesting because I think the style that he plays may lean into some of the bigger, stronger forces in English football going, oh, we'll send him down there to do that because loans and the way that we play, you know, there's a lot of managers who might look at it and go, well, that's how we want to play. And I want the kids who are being loaned out or the young players being loaned out to play in a system that fits in with what they're going to be doing when they come back.
Yeah, the loans are crucial. The loans are everything, really, because they are your players. And we've said it a few times now, but they should be your Morgan Gibbs-White, who are unattainable as a permanent transfer, come in to get better themselves as a player, but are better than what we've got in the squad. And then that loan deal works for everybody. Obviously, we didn't get over the line for promotion like we all wanted, and it was unfortunately Gibbs-White himself that missed the pen or got the pen saved. But we got a fantastic player who we'd never have been able to afford on a free. On a permanent, sorry, obviously not on a free, on a permanent. He improved as a player, and Wolves got 40 million quid for him that summer. So that loan deal worked for all 3 parties, and that is what you should be aiming for every time. Same with Dean Henderson. You could argue that he came a very good player already, left the best goalkeeper in the Championship, so good that we got him back the following season in the Premier League. We still couldn't afford him because he ended up signing an £120 a week deal with Man U because of his performances at Sheffield United, but improved as a player, has ended up getting in the England squad, now really settled at Palace and will be a Premier League goalkeeper probably for the rest of his career until it starts to wane in his later years, and if that becomes the case. So those are what loan deals should be. Obviously, they're premium loans that everybody wants those type of loans. But if we're not looking for players that we can't afford on a permanent deal, what are we doing in the loan market? Why you can't fill spaces with loans? They're so vital that you should be getting the best that you possibly could. They should be starters. Loans should always be starters for me. So we have got 5 starters to get in on loan in this transfer window. And that's why we're saying we can cope with loans and frees here or there. When I'm talking about frees, we're talking about your Jimmy Dunns. That's obviously been gone by the wayside now. It looks like we may spend some money on permanent transfers as opposed to getting these Championship frees that we think could do a job at top end at league. We might be looking higher. That might be the ambition now, that we look higher than that and don't look at a free transfer who's chosen to re-sign for QPR nonetheless and not got a deal from another top end Championship club. Maybe all us Sheffield United fans that were desperate to see Jimmy Dunn, yes, he's a good Championship player, and I'm not going to change my opinion on it. I still think he would be a very good player for Sheffield United. It were right there to fill that right back slot, especially the yin and yang. I can never say that, but the yin yang with Sariki as well. Different types of defenders for different occasions in the same position. Still think it'd have been a great signing for us. But maybe I'm not right. Maybe there is a defender out there. We might have to spend 2-3 million quid on him, but maybe there's a defender out there that can be a level above what Jimmy Dunn can offer, and might not only be a top level championship player for us, he might just bridge that gap between the championship and the Premier League. So while we are all bemoaning the fact that we've missed out, Jimmy Dunn has had to go back to QPR with his tail between his legs after negotiating with Sheffield United for 6 months. All QPR fans doing somersaults that he's gone back to them. I don't think it shows a lot of ambition on his part, if I'm honest. And that's no offence to QPR, because they're a good club at the level. But I think he had the choice to sign for Sheffield United. We have pulled the plug on the deal. Where are the other clubs in for him if he's this brilliant prospect at the level? Why haven't Southampton gone and nabbed him when they're going to lose Kyle Walker-Peters? Why haven't Leicester gone in for him when he's a solid championship addition? They're going to be up and around us as well, you'd think, with the talent that they've got in the squad. I just, maybe, dare I say it, us Sheffield United fans, who the majority of us only know the domestic market, maybe we don't know best. Do you know what I mean? There is always that likelihood. We only know what we know. So as much as Jimmy Dunn's one of the best options we can come up with as a fan base, and us three are probably all agreed, we'd have liked Jimmy Dunn to come in, but we haven't got the information that the club have got in terms of what Jimmy Dunn's like, for one. There might be a lot of detracting, points on him as a player or a person, but he might also have been number 5 on the list offered to Selles, and he says, actually, no, can we go for them top 3 instead? Because that would be
I
better.
think it's ceiling. I think that's their approach. He might be a solid option now, but what's his ceiling like? And are they prepared to say, look, let's take someone who might take a season to get to the level we need, but we think can go even further? And they've gone down that route, because otherwise it was a bit of a no-brainer, wasn't it, when you think about it?
I think so.
But this is a new approach.
Exciting to think, though, isn't it, that we could be going somewhere better. What are you laughing at, Mountain?
What am I laughing at? I'm laughing at you.
What? Getting all excited?
No. That what you just said there. Me and you had this conversation about a week ago, and it was me saying that to you.
Somebody did that to me the other day.
I completely stole and I agree with you because I said it.
But you said it. He's built a YouTube channel over it, mate. It's fine.
Oh, don't, because my dad says that to me all the time. You just nick it.
No, that's why I'm saying it.
I genuinely, I'd forgotten that we'd mentioned that. I always try and give credit where it's due, and you know that. But if you're now pretending that you've obviously me,
but that what you've said there is exactly what I said to you on the phone. I was like, yeah, that's right.
Oh, I should have said it when you weren't here.
Because I said it to you, didn't I? Me signing for QPR, like you've said. Why if he's the?
It is what you said. It is what you said. Now you say. That's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. Straight in front of you as well. No shame. No shame.
Mate. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, I think you only said the thing about why are other clubs not coming in for him, didn't you? And I know that was part of my point. But yeah, anyway, that's where I've got it from, clearly.
Yeah.
That's where it's sat in my brain. Thank you, Mr. Mountain, the font. 3MB, evening 3MB, we have to get behind our new... Oh, I'm embarrassed now. We have to get behind our new boss. Give him time to implement his style, his tactics, and we will be fine. Up all the rambles, up the blades, like and subscribe. Looking good, Jimmy. Thank you, mate. Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, do you mean the setup? Fair enough. Looks great with the new setup, says Danny. Thank you, pal. It ought to. Chris says, still cannot process why they've replaced Wilder with Selles. I cannot see him doing better than Wilder regarding recruitment and points tally. I hope I'm wrong. Selles won't last the season. Up the Ramble. Sad for you guys, says Matt, Leeds fan who started watching you last season. Thank you, mate. Most Leeds fans have never got over Bielsa. And while Wilder is no Bielsa, the feeling of nothing ever being the same again is real. We have to get used to this. I don't think we will pine for Wilder, because I think he's come back in his second spell, and I think that has satisfied the thirst for a Wilder fix. What I do think we'll have to get used to is not having a fan at the helm, because, again, I've said it a couple of... Make sure none of you two have said this to me, actually, by the way, and take credit for it if you have. but we have been spoilt as a fan base, having Chris Wilder in charge, having not only a blade, but the most successful blade that we could possibly ever have. And that feeling that he gives you when he wins, it feels a little bit higher. When he loses, it probably feels a little bit lower as well. But I think we have to get used to now somebody just being all business as a Sheffield United manager, not being as emotionally involved. Obviously, he wants to do well for his job and his own prospects and for the club that he's working for, but it's not going to feel the same to him, or it won't feel the same to us as Wilder being in the seat did, because we knew that he felt it as much as we did. Dave made a brilliant point, and I know who made this point. Dave made the brilliant point of saying, and you mentioned it again tonight on Radio 5, didn't you? Who's going to pick him up? Who's going to pick Wilder up when he hurts the most? Because a lot is put on his shoulders to pick the club up and go again, but it will have hurt him, if not just as much, probably a touch more than it hurts all of us to be the man that was in charge when we fell at the final hurdle. So how does anybody expect to just dust themselves down and go again without any sort of reaction? And I don't know whether that played into the board's thinking, but it's certainly a valid point, Dave, and one that stuck with me as something that you definitely said, not me. So Gaz says, evening blades, up the ramble. Guessing we will know if the board made the right choice come mid-season. Yeah, we will. We will, Gaz. All will be revealed soon, pal. The current situation is poo, says Morrissey. But we got to look forward and get behind the man. Imagine having a fan base that's already written you off. Yeah, I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be 97%, 98% positive come the start of the season, particularly if we get some decent names in. Getting your passport photos done on YouTube says nice. Yeah, nice with the little boxes. Don't take Mickey out my setup. It's cost me a fortune. Only joking. Looks a great setup, Jimmy. Thank you, Uncle Pete. It's Kyle. Hi. Up the blades, up the ramble, like and subscribe. It says 5th Street. Uncle Pete. Okay. Hi, lad, says John. Got to get behind the new manager. It'd be interesting to see which players he gets and which go. Would have preferred Dyche, but we are here. We are where we are now. So fingers crossed, up the blades, up all the rambles. Like and subscribe. We touched on Dyche, John, and I'd normally throw it to the lads here, but we have touched on it as a group, really, that I think he's way too much in the Wilder mold, and it's very much screams of a complete mindset shift for the club, and maybe likely a structure change and a different approach altogether than purely domesticated sort of blood and thunder manager that's historically done very well. I think Dyche, almost like Wilder, guarantees you a promotion push, but maybe not in the mould that the board sees the club in the long term. 5th Street says, I was fully expecting Dyche. Martin says, love this show so much. I have the notifications on, so I can't miss an episode. Martin, you're my favourite type of rambler. Thank you, pal. Up the blades, up all the rambles, like and subscribe. And this show in particular, from next month, I don't think we're on next Sunday, but from next month will become a weekly show on the main channel, something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. Thank you to the boys for making that commitment. And not only that, obviously you get your view from the mountain from our main friend of the stars, Paul Mountain. You also will be getting, if you are a Rambler, you will be getting Mr. Nose on your screens very shortly, who will be taking hosting duties up intermittently every other week. I think we'd said, hadn't we? Dave the Nose will be the new, I'd say co-host, because we're going to alternate, I think, pal, aren't we, in terms of Hot Topic. So he will be there for our, starting this week, this coming Wednesday. Dave will be hosting his first Hot Topic with our Platinum Ramblers. That will be available for all the Ramblers to watch live on Wednesday, and it will be released later in the week, all being well, unless Dave kiboshes it on Saturday on Behind the Ramble. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. So thank you to the lads for that. I love what you bring to the channel, as you know, both of you. And I know I say it a lot to you, but it's nice for me to say it on stream as well. So thank you for your ongoing commitment to the channel. Lee says, makes no sense at all. This new structure idea is just a comforting story we are telling ourselves. Fingers crossed it goes south and they sell up. 92 isn't good. It's exceptional considering the circumstances. Lee has not changed his tune at all in terms of not agreeing with the decision. And again, that's your prerogative, pal. Never, I am.
Wanting us to
I'm
fail,
not. I'm not going to leave it on screen, but I am going to definitely push back on the fingers crossed it goes boobs up, because what kind of a blade, Lee? Come on, mate. What kind of a blade wants your team to fail just to say you were right? I would rather Nigel Adkins comes
Be
back
wrong.
and we win the league than, because I would be saying terrible decision, but I still want my team to do well. I'd rather be wrong and United do well than be right and see us struggle. It's crazy to think and talk like that, pal. I'm personally excited about it. We weren't expecting promotion before last season, so we shouldn't this season, says Nigel. It's a huge change in structure for the club. Patience is needed to get behind the bloke, up the blades. I think Paul's touched on it as well, being a huge risk. The huge risk for me is we haven't got time. We haven't got time because this is the second and final parachute payments season. So after that, our wage bill gets cut significantly if we're not successful next season. Our transfer budget undoubtedly gets cut. PSR doesn't fall into the same sort of guidelines for our club as it did do when we were receiving those parachute payments. We are operating in a much, not smaller pool per se, but much more difficult restraints in terms of finance. Davey boy, go for it, mate.
Just a quick one on that. That only works if we can't increase our income in other ways. And they wouldn't be doing their job properly if they're not looking at ways to increase the revenue coming in anyway. So I don't write us off if we don't go up.
Absolutely, mate. But if you can make up a gap of 40 million quid that we're going to lose in parachute payments or whatever the sum is, chuffing out.
So how are the likes of Birmingham and Wrexham going out? Like Birmingham spending whatever they did on.
That's a as far as I'm aware, that is a not a reckless spend, but it's not a book balancing exercise, is it? They are spending with risk attached.
They've got to pay for it, though, haven't they?
Yeah, they are backing it with their own money. Absolutely, they are.
Yeah. So
Whereas I think as a sustainable club model, we are looking to have balanced books, aren't we?
Yeah, of course you are, but you still don't. Balanced books doesn't mean they necessarily have to put their hands in the pockets for all of it. They'll look at how can we attract more money coming into the football club. It's smart. It's what any business should be doing like this. And all right, they might not get it right done in 12 months, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of work going on at the minute to see how we can start bringing more cash in, regardless of whether we go up or not.
I am an hour and a half behind the comments, lads, and we've been going 2 hours? No, an hour and 40 we've been going.
I'll shut up now then.
Okay. No. It's just I need to get through some. Otherwise, we're never going to finish, are we? And I know you guys will want to finish before midnight. Bryce says, "Evening, boys, fellow blades, and other subscribers. Please keep the chat nice and clean. Family stream, etc." Yeah, no problem. I don't think we've had any issues unless you tell me different, Bryce. Lee says, "Put it this way: if Wilder was managing a club and got the same results Sellers had, we wouldn't look at him." I think you may be right. You may be right with that, but I think there's other factors that go into the Sellers appointment. He's a younger manager. He's an up-and-coming manager. He speaks different languages. He's got a fantastic pedigree as a manager in terms of what he's done academically. That doesn't necessarily guarantee anybody to be a success either. So I don't disagree in a lot of respects, but there is context to everything. Another year, another slow start to the window. Yes, I know changing manager, but you'd hope after Wembley we'd move to get things in place, says Scott. Selles needs back in, especially with the wingers and defenders. Matt says, I was gutted when Wilder got sacked, but I'm excited for the season now. Looking forward to it. Just not liking the AI signing. Hopefully it pays off, guys. Any rumours on signings? If you know, we have talked about it, Matt. Hiya, Nige. Good, thanks, mate. Okay. Good do we out reading them sort of comments. Apologies. Evening when Bielsa was still at Leeds, we were aware that his other clubs' fans referred to themselves as Bielsa's widows. I reckon you're Wilder widows. Yeah, possibly, pal. Possibly. I think we'd have been fine, says Alessandro, with another season under Wilder and whatever signings he'd have made. Gutted we missed out on Dunn and Darling. I hope Sellers does well and hopefully he's backed in the window. Harley Dean also said we were close to signing him, but guess we went with John Egan instead. Thank goodness we did. No offence to Harley Dean. Kershaw says, on a positive, Selles has a reputation for developing youth, very flexible tactically, very good man manager, speaking multiple languages. Maybe fresh ideas is what you need. Yeah, absolutely right. Dublin Blade says, I'm more than willing to give Say Yes a long running at this. We have to be patient. This could be a start of a very exciting future. People giving out about AI. How many players did United World give us? Yeah, true. Cooler King says, evening, Mardy. It's difficult to know if it's going well or badly, but it will be totally different. And that's exciting in itself. I've read enough to have confidence in Selles. May need 2 seasons. Yeah, possibly. Zonny says, I just want to see us get the ball rolling now and get some players through the door and get us all excited. I am going to have to try and sort of not read repeated comments from people. I'll just make sure everybody gets a comment read once if I can, if that's okay. Jace says, I feel sorry for Sheffield United, as there's a lot better managers out there who ain't got a job. Ruben Selles is the worst manager ever. Wow. Would like to know who you support, Jace, to be honest, if you've got experience of him managing your club. I think that's wild, to be honest.
Not met David Weir.
Very true, very true. This is a lot of the reason for the comments. It's Bright and Lee, I think, and Nige going back and forth. How's Arblaster coming on? He's going to be like a new signing when he comes back. Our captain coming on okay, we think. The original injury is fine. There's just a little bit of concerns over a separate thing that he might have picked up. Not sure how long it's going to keep him out. Not long, hopefully. Still expect to see him back for the start of the season. Peak says, really hope, and thank you for becoming a Platinum Rambler, Peak. Very much appreciated. Really hope our first game, the fans show the same passion as Georgie Baldock, and Wilder will be the 12th player for Ruben and the team, loud and proud. Louis says, the number 6 discussion is very interesting. All depends on how vertical. That's an hour and 20 minutes ago, but thanks, Louis. That shows how far back we are. If you want to go forward quickly, you need a ball player. Blaster is as an all-rounder. Yeah, I think he's an all-rounder, which is why me and Paul can make arguments for him in different areas, whether it be the 6 or the... I think he'll be preferred as an 8, but he could be used as a 6, undoubtedly. Chris says, do you think we'll have a stronger team than last season going down the data route? Lads, are you confident we'll have a stronger team than last year? Paul nodded quite comfortably.
Yeah, I think we've got the basis for a very good team, and I think if he gets 3 or 4 in, like we've said about the loans, 3 or 4 good loans, and I said this to you, didn't I, Jim, the other day about perms being
Can't remember.
better for continuity, because I think part of the issue is if you do end up achieving your goals and you end up going to the Premier League and your 3 best players are all loan players. I know what you're saying. You are right that they can make it a massive, massive difference if you get the right ones in, because like you say, there should be players that you wouldn't normally be able to attain or purchase.
Yeah.
So yeah, but there is a problem with that, and the fall to that is when you actually do go up, you've got to give them all back, and then you've got another problem where you should be able to buy better players because you have more money to spend, and
Burnley did very well, didn't it? Burnley did it very well.
And you don't go, well, we're not having him because we won't be able to afford him if we go up. That's not a way to get your loans in. But there is a positive to having perms, because we spoke about a method to play as well. So having a way that you play with certain players involved, and we spoke about the Burnley lads who they got in on loan having options to buy on achieving promotion is a masterstroke. It's a great idea. If they've been your best player, it's like Solomon. I'm guaranteeing that Leeds United, if that would have loved to have that in the contract, if we get promoted, we can buy Solomon for 15-20 million quid, because he going back to Spurs now to potentially, or is it Spurs? Because he was at Spurs, wasn't he? And they've loaned him from there. So Frank might look at him now and keep him, and now they've got that a player who's done it outstanding for him this season is now not theirs when they go up. So there is that you might end up going up with a weaker team than what you had in the Championship, which certainly happened to Sheffield United a few seasons ago as well. So there is a benefit to owning the assets, as it were. Certainly when we look at the models that we're looking to replicate. They have these guys signed, sealed, and in, don't they? They belong to the clubs, and then they can make the big cash on them if they prove themselves at the level. So
it's a great point. I think I said that to you. Dale says, go on, Dale.
We had done that. Sorry, we had done that with BBD, Hamza. At least
Correct.
those two.
Yeah, we did with those two.
So we had approached that. I thought about it for a second. I thought, other than Hamza, the loans, did they work? And Hamza worked in the position different to what he was brought in for. So, yeah, I think as long as we don't have a mass exodus.
Harry Suter.
Yeah, okay, but as long as we don't have a mass exodus, we will have a stronger squad, I think, than we've finished the season with.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Dale says, wouldn't it be great to play with two out-and-out wingers? What's your thoughts? Paul's mentioned it. I think it'd be a really big plus for us. In this division, last season it was shown, firstly with Leeds, who dominated in their attacking play, but also when Burnley went strong with their, certainly their front, I won't say front four, but the three of Brownhill in the 10 and the two wide men of Anthony and Edwards, that completely changed the complexion of their season, second half of the season. So, yeah, I think a strong attack, front foot attack, obviously wingers last year for those two really worked out well. Liam says, great video, boys. Would have stuck with Wilder, but he's gone, so we move forward. Enjoyed the sensible look forward. Feel pretty confident we are up there in or around the top two this season. Me too, pal. Russ says, lol, as most of this chat, we will lose all the players you're on about. These Muppets are going to asset strip us, use AI to bring in cheap replacements. Can't you see that? No, can't see it. Disagree, Russ. You're entitled to your opinion, pal, but completely disagree. Michael says, hope it starts well for Ruben, because if it doesn't, it could be uncomfortable in the dugout, but we have to get behind him. It could be exciting. Kel says, hi, Jimmy. Are you well? What do you think to our new manager? Up the Blades, up the Ramble, up behind the Ramble. I am optimistic is the best way to put it, Kel. I won't say, I'm not over the moon. I'm not like jumping out of my chair about it. He's not a name that jumps off the page immediately, but it does appear to be a thoughtful appointment and a very sensible appointment, particularly if it's leaning towards what we think will be a complete change in approach to how United go about the business. Liam says, if Selles went into Southampton in December last year and did the job he's done at Hull and kept them up, we'd have been having a different conversation, different league, but same end result. Absolutely right. Well put. Louis says, hi, lads. Leeds fan in peace here. Have you been watching? I've been watching you for a long time now, Jim. Do you honestly think with what's coming down, you guys under Selles will be strong enough to get into the top two, up the Ramble, marching on together? Yeah, I don't. To say I don't fear the three that have come down would be a little bit arrogant and probably a bit naive as well. But you're always respectful of that. I think Leicester are in a bit of a mess. Southampton aren't fully set up for to bounce straight back. Ipswich, I think, will be very strong, just because of the way they're recruited in the Premier League. Like Paul touched on, they looked like they were going for the right strategy. They can now use the Brighton model, which everybody raves about because they're no longer in the same division. But the other two will have to sell a lot of players, I believe, and sort of half rebuild. Now, Will Still's a good manager, not proven at the level, but comes with a big reputation. It's rumoured that Sean Dyche is going to go in at Leicester when they eventually sack Ruud van Nistelrooy, which they're apparently holding out until next month, so it doesn't have to be 2 seconds in the same PSR year, which is ridiculous. But if Sean Dyche goes in there, another strong manager for the level, they will be a force. Whether they're a weakened side or not, there will be a force. So yeah, I respect the teams coming down, but I know what we've got. I know what we've got in our side, and if we keep the nucleus of our side and we add to it with quality, we are going to be a side to be reckoned with next season if we get it right on the pitch. And obviously, it's going to be a new way of playing that we'll have to get used to. Certainly, a new manager and new approach all around, particularly to targets and stuff. But I think we could be really strong next season. Now the dust has settled a little, says Renegade, I'm okay with trying a new system. I think us Blades got too used to playing one style of football. I'd be happy to see a more attacking style of play. Yes, me too, pal. Hamer sees things quicker and moves the ball quicker, says David. Yeah, he does. He does. That's another thing he offers us. I think that's fair. Lee says, when O'Hare plays alongside Hamer, it brings the best out of him. If we brought him more quality and flair and play Hamer in the 10, we'll get the best out of him, providing he's fit enough to play lol. Now, I think it was Paul I was talking to, but we've mentioned this a couple of times on the channel. If we can play a system and Hamer's one of the 2/8s and O'Hare is the 10, where Hamer is a lot closer to O'Hare, I think we'll laugh him. I think we're absolutely laughing because when they play close to each other on the pitch, not necessarily when Hamer's out wide left. It might have been you, Dave, when we were doing the actual stream, but I think that is something that could work because they do work really well together. I agree, but I wouldn't have. I like Hamer in the 10, but I don't think Cal gets in the team then. So if O'Hare's in the 10 and Hamer's in like an 8 pushing on, I think that could work personally. Paul says, lads, I'd take Hamer and pay him in pork pies just for his vision. Fair. Michael says, don't think Hamer is not good enough for the Prem. He just never looks in shape. Only completed 90 minutes in 25 games last season. Don't surprise. I didn't know the stats, but that doesn't surprise me at all. Doyle's off to Birmingham, apparently, says Scott. Doesn't surprise me. We're moving on from those targets that we were all linked with previously. That's a shame because obviously a lot of United players like Doyle, but Paul's already spoken about it. A Premier League manager thinks he's not built for the Premier League. And a lot of fans, would be saying we should be identifying players that could make that transition with us if we're to do well in the Championship. I'm not necessarily of that thinking. I think we should be getting players to get us out of the Championship first and foremost. I think that's got to be it. You can't skip ahead a couple of pages. It's an idealistic recruitment strategy to say we need to buy this player that could be a Premier League player. But if you can get it, then obviously you've got to go for it. Jay Bod says, any legitimate names linked to improvers? All teams who will be near the top are already bringing players in. Yeah, we have talked about that, pal. And I know you've asked that over an hour ago. So what about Scoogle and Salmon Renegade? Jamie Dumpling says, evening, guys. Thank you for your compliment, Dave, the other day. And hope your Radio 5 interview went well. Not Selles' fault. CW got sacked. Let's have it. Do you want to speak again, Dave, on what I think it's worth putting some time to it? Because I think it was a fantastic point that he raised. If you're happy to do that.
Yeah, it was. We couldn't have asked for a better manager to take us through George's passing than Chris, and how he handled the entire event, the aftermath, and his class about it all, really. And I thought it was a comment of the night from Jamie the other night. I thought he absolutely nailed it. And I think it was worth saying as well, and it's worth us continuing to say it, because that wasn't an easy situation for us all to deal with, let alone the club and the fans. So Chris did an amazing job with it.
Yeah, he did. Understated, really, in terms of the grand scheme of things. Got lost in a lot of different conversations over the season, but that was a horrendous thing to happen to the football club. And we obviously, I think we balanced giving it more than the appropriate respect that George deserves, but also not letting us really miss a beat on the pitch, which is incredible. Obviously, we had the Middlesbrough and Leeds results that you could have just, they were secondary to everything that week, and they were good. They're good sides as well. Borough were playing well at that time, but other than it, to pick us up from that point when our season could have unravelled, really. Losing 2 games on spin, a lot of the squad have lost one of their close friends, Wilder as well. Incredible for him to keep the train on the tracks at that stage. Remarkable. Mr. Vancouver with an unbelievable super chat. Thank you, pal. Evening, gents. I think it's going to be a breakout year for my favourite player who should thrive under Selles. For those that don't know, that is Callum O'Hare. And his forward way of thinking, up the Blades, up all the Rambles. Like and subscribe to the best Blades content online. Thank you, pal. Leeds United Calypso. Excuse me, that'll serve me right for eating nuts on screen. Top channel this. This is for, don't you shake your head, Mr. Man. I can see out of my peripheral vision. Top channel this, and that's from a Leeds fan. Hope we stay up and you get promoted. Not sure on Selles, but I think you'll be fine. Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. Fairfield says, evening lads, saw a really good thread on Twitter about the ESC spots for foreign players. I think it goes that we can only sign 4. So realistically, how many foreign players can we go after? Did we get any clarity on this, lads? Are we aware of it?
Only what I think he's referring to, that he can sign. I don't know. I'm not confident enough to say it.
It's a work permit issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really, and it's
Yeah.
whether if you have not qualified through enough international games. And you are from foreign climes, then we can only sign up to 4 of those players that are non-international players. This is how I perceive it to be. Only 4 of those players that are non-internationals. So we can only, through the AI model, Caceres would be one. Sorry, Caceres would be nice. Caceres would be one. Chris Nachukwu, sorry if I've got his name. Yeah, I don't know whether that's right or not. You're presumptuous saying well done there, mate. But
that's good. All right.
That's 2. This top coup would be 3, or Hungarian right back would be 4. Whatever it is, we would quickly fill our quota is the concern, essentially. I'm not sure. I'm not dismissing what I think it was the Pinch that originally reported on it, who have done some great work recently online about United. But I would have to look deeper into it and probably speak to somebody at the club about it rather than try and work it out myself, because it always goes wrong when I try and do stuff like that. Tom says we got Tanaka from German 2nd Division. Decent deals out there. Exactly right, pal. Well said. Dino says maybe we sell such as Ryan One and Anel with good money for them too. A bit of an investment type. A bit of an investment. Maybe we don't need to sell any of the star players, and such as Robbo moved on frees up money. I completely agree. Freeing up. The deal that we expect to happen is Brewster leaves, and that frees up a lot of money. That you can probably get 2 players in for what Brewster's on, and that's no slight on Rian. It's just the situation we're in. We paid a lot of money for him. We're on a very good wage. One is idealistic, really. I think we would probably want to sell him as a club if we can get the sort of Asula money that we're being talked about. Because you're right, that would, when I say want to sell him, I mean as an alternative to losing a Vinny Souza or a Sidney Peck. Who are more first team ready. You never want to lose your star players, but I think if we can get an Asula type deal, I'd be very interested. Think you'll have to sell before you buy, says Paul. I don't agree. I don't agree with that, to be honest. But we'll have to wait and see. Mogga says, love the floating 3 heads in a flat 3. Reminds me of classic Norwood, Lundstrom and Fleck. Thank you, mate. Dale says Star Wars before kickoff, lads. No. I don't know if this is a thing that's been started in the chat as I've been skipping over people trying to just find new names that haven't been read out. Walkout music. Go on then, I'll give you a quick one, lads. What walkout music should we be having? Other than Matilda Shakes, which should obviously be the choice, without a doubt.
That was my answer. That was my answer. Fever Dream.
Fever Dream. See,
It's gotta be.
Shakes want adrenaline rather than Fever Dream. Fever Dream, for those that don't know, is the opening intro music for the Ramble. Adrenaline is the outro music, so you'll hear that when we finish, hopefully in the next 10-15 minutes. So you'll hear that. Charged up on adrenaline. That was written for United, as far as I'm aware.
Wow.
And then it got pied when we tried pitching it or James tried pitching it to the club. So other than Matilda Shakes, I liked Comeback Kid personally. I really liked Comeback Kid. Any advance on Comeback Kid?
Enter Sandman. Loads of teams come out to that thing already.
That is a good song. A lot of people like
some kind of metalcore for me.
Fair dues. Okay. Who else hasn't had a comment read? Josh says, I think it'll depend on our budget, how many we go for, but could also look at loans and loans to buy. A few centre-backs I believe we may be looking at. Top coup. Phillips has sort of been kibosh for now. Like Dave says, that might come back on the table later. Cash in. When you say we may be looking at them, have you heard them linked? Because cash in at Brighton, formerly of Derby, would be brilliant. Callum Doyle, who I think Paul's a big fan of, and a lot of the Ramblers speak very highly of. And Hughes, Charlie Hughes at Hull, obviously has worked with Sellers before. Are these actual links, Josh, from anywhere, or are these players that you are suggesting? Because I like them all, but I think these will be backed up with the data and probably others we've never heard of. So yeah, let me know, pal. Righteous One says it's my favourite fans of my least favourite club. Hey, up Blades Ramble. Andre Brooks is a baller and needs a full season. Lads, I don't think I'll have many comments left because I'm not repeating anybody that's already had a comment read out. So we have got a little bit of time to talk in between. Andre Brooks, do we think he's a baller? Do we think it's a season for him to kick on in this United team, or do we think he needs maybe a little bit of time away from the club with maybe a loan, top end League One, bottom end Championship, maybe to improve? What were your thoughts?
I think the trouble with him is that he's been sublime to ridiculous at times.
Yeah.
So he's lacked consistency. He drives me mad because he's got all the tools and he's got the physicality to really affect games, and it drives me potty that he won't go down both sides. He's clearly got quality. He just again, it's a good shout about a loan because I still see him having a role to play in the first team, but he's been used like a lot of players last season, in, out, shaking it about. Don't know where they're going to be in, because in the next month or so, Gilchrist, BBD, Raksaki, Brooks, just in and out all year. And yeah, for his development, you'd like to think that he could get a run of games, but his performances have been one or the other. And if you want to go and get promoted, you need players who are more consistent than that, in my opinion. So I think it's a good shout for a loan. I'm intrigued to see what Selles can get out of him, because I think he has got tools and I think his ceiling is high. I think he could be fantastic if he makes better decisions on the pitch, if he gets him doing the things we know he can do. Sometimes when he's running at a fullback, he's unstoppable nearly, and other times he won't run at him, and other times he'll cut inside all the time and make it obvious what he's doing.
Sublime to ridiculous is a great description, because he has been great at times, hasn't he? And then been very poor at others. So yeah,
very poor at times. Been hauled off, hasn't he? And he's got to grow up and learn that if he wants to be a Championship football player, he's got to turn in performance after performance. That's what separates good players and average players. Is that
right.
you got to be consistent, and every game show us why you deserve to be in this team.
Dave,
I question what people expect to happen when you've got a young lad and you shoehorn him in at right wing, when from what I can tell he's never played right wing, certainly in his professional career, maybe not since he was well into grassroots. I thought he looked brilliant in the Premier League as the left-sided 8. So I'd look to, if we're going to go with that system, I'd look to be using him in that. Don't think he's a winger.
It would not. I mean, it would at the moment, but we wouldn't be flawed if something like an Andre Brooks on the left 8 went straight in next season, because Selles might see something in these players that we've not seen all season, and he could really become a strong player in that position, couldn't he? Nobody's mentioned him as the 8 until you've just briefly touched on him now, Dave. But that could happen. Could get a player plucked out of nowhere. He might.
He did under Hecky in the Prem, didn't he?
They did.
Or under Wilder when he came back. One of them played him
predominantly Hecky, and then because we were questioning why Brooks couldn't get a kick second half of the season, I think, and then Wilder started to bring him in towards the end of Prem season, I think. So, absolutely, there's definitely a player in there. It's just how we get that out of him. Paul says, we all feel sad about losing Wilder. What a massive impact he made and a great job he did. But once a blade, always a blade. Up the blades, up all the rambles, like and subscribe. Saying hello says, I'm cautious by nature. High risk, high reward, but makes me nervous. Toddy says 10 subs off 8.5k. Come on, Blades, let's help the lads out. Yeah, it goes up in tens. This ticker at the side, which is above the Blades Ramble logo. This is your sub counter, but it goes up in tens. So we're actually 8 away from 8,500. So if anybody's not subscribed and they want to actually see that change on screen here to an 8500, then I just need 8 of you that aren't subscribed to help us out. That would be great. Thank you. Andrew says, why didn't this manager get a job in Spain? Because they know is no good. I will leave that as is. Hyder says, haven't seen us linked to any decent players. Still very concerned. How do we know they're decent, Hyder? How do we know they're decent or not? We don't, do we? We don't. Bryce says, Jackie Longthrow seems to have a poor record with the fans. I think he splits opinion, pal. I think there's a lot of people that are very pro Jack Robinson. It was a similar thing with Ollie McBurney. People either rate him or don't rate him. There's very few that tend to, in my opinion, that tend to think, oh, he's just okay. Those that back him think he's an average to good player, I think, that does a job. Those that don't think we need to improve. And I'm in the latter, to be honest. Brian means to interact with. I will not elaborate. Marco says, all gone quiet on Poku from Peterborough. Gutted if that's out the window. It'd have been one of the most exciting signings as a young starter for years, potentially at right wing. Jacob Horsfall seems to think 4-3-3, but this squad is much more suited to the 4-2-3-1, in my opinion. Depends on sales and purchases, of course. Were we ever truly linked to Poku? I know you like him, Dave. I didn't see many, if any, sources reporting that somebody might have said that we were in, but Birmingham were leading the race, something like that in some of the one publication somewhere. But I've never heard overtly that we are definitely in for Kwame Poku, who's a very good player, by the way, at Peterborough. No, Dave, not heard it from anywhere, because I know you liked it at one stage. Okay.
No, I've probably just seen it in our chat, to be fair.
Okay, mate. Joe says correct Selles pronunciation is Selles, like paella. Yes, it is, pal. Yeah, I just can't get used to it. It's my mispronunciation and my lazy elocution, I suppose. Uncouthness. Is that a word?
Probably not.
Hey,
I'm from Killamar.
The irony of because I couldn't pronounce something, it's uncouthness. I quite like Australia Dam. Okay, Dave. Okay, good to know, pal. Good to know. Scott says, give the man a chance. Completely agree. Bryce says, like, subscribe, and share the channel, please. Well said, Bryce. Brett says, do you think the owners would want loans in or what to buy all the young talent to... Hang on, Brett, what's going on here? Do you think the owners would want loans in or what to buy all the young talent to have them as sellable assets? Or want you're going for there, isn't it? Want to buy all the young talent to have them as sellable assets at the end of the season if needed. No profit on loans, up the Ramble. I think ideally you would always buy a young prospect, but it's got to be at the right price. And you would only loan a young prospect if he immediately impacts your first team. That would be my say on it. I don't like if we'd have been linked with Ash Phillips, for example. Well, we were linked with Ash Phillips. Thomas Frank's now going to have a look at him. I would like that deal if he comes in permanently, because I think there's a big upside to him potentially. I don't necessarily think we'll see it this season. So to bring him in as a loan, I think would be a waste unless you're going to back him as being your starting centre half. Ash says, I think Chris Wilder would be a very good director of football for Sheffield United in the future, getting players in a football. Love the Rambles, up the Blaze. Thank you, Ash. I do disagree with this, to be honest. Thoughts on Chris Wilder on a director of football role, Paolo?
No, I don't see it. I think he's a manager. I don't think he'd want the role for a start. Nope, don't see it personally. I think the transfer thing, I think he sells the club very well. I think he could do that for us, but yeah, it's the skill set required for that type of role. I'm not sure if it would be Wilder's cup of tea. So
I think the type of person he is, he wants to have that involvement, doesn't he? I don't necessarily mean he wants to be the main man all the time, but It would be overshadowed. The manager would be overshadowed by Chris Wilder,
It
undoubtedly.
would be really difficult for the man in charge if he
Yeah, of
was.
course it would. If Chris Wilder's saying no, yes, no, yes, no to things,
Mm.
he's still running it into basically. It's like having Alan Nil take over now. He's just Wilder's on top, isn't it? It's like no, it don't work. Don't work for me. Where were we? Ollie says we're nearly at the end now, actually, because I've apologies for all the comments I've had to cut out, but I'm trying to make sure everybody gets at least one read out. In the Championship, it makes sense to wait until the Prem teams have done their business so you can buy the surplus players who can bridge the gap. Yeah, I think it's also worth waiting until the Prem teams announce their squads, because then you'll have peripheral players left out and who you know are available then as well. Or Josh saying he hadn't heard anything other than Phillips, but these are some of the players that data might bring up. Yeah, and I think they're hang on. Scott the Drop from Insomnia says Bry for a walkout tune. Lee says I loved Unsecret by No Mercy. Or No Mercy. Unsecret.
Yeah. So did I.
Adagio for strings as the walkout tune, says Scott. Poku's going to
by Stash.
Encore une fois. Yeah. It'll be La Bamba. We Sellers in charge. Poku going to Rangers, says Max. Will there be a name leaked next week, Jimmy? Did you say? No, I didn't say that, pal. I didn't say that. I said a name hadn't been linked, hadn't been circulated just yet. Snow Patrol, just say yes to our new gaffer. Fair dues, nice. Fixtures out on Thursday at midday, lads and lasses. Yes, I have already got a stream prepared, so do not fear. We will be here. Yeah, it's planned in for 10 to 12 hour stream because the fixtures drop at 12 midday, as Chris says there. I'm at the end of the comments, gentlemen. So we have been going for an exceptionally long time, as we tend to do. Nearly 2 hours, 15 minutes, something like that. Anything else you would like to say initially? Because obviously this is something we'll probably talk about all summer. And we'll have plenty of time to do it because we're going weekly from July. So anything else you want to cover while we're all together, my boys?
I just want a bit of a message, really. I just want us to open minds about what is coming up. There's literally no point in trying to make a judgment on anything until we know where we are in terms of what the team looks like. Have a bit of faith. I think Selles seems like a credible person, and yeah, he'll be getting my backing because he deserves it until I see something that until we see something that we didn't like. Well, it was amazing for us. He had his faults. We know lots of us have different opinions to him on certain things to do with the team, etc. He was an outstanding manager. And I think like you say, I don't think we should be mourning him for too much. He's going to be just fine, and he's going to go and get another job. And I can see him still being a really successful, great manager. But we've got to embrace what we've got, and I think it's a big risk, but it's a risk that the owners have the right to take, and I think we should give him the best chance to be successful. I can't agree. I don't want the team to fail just to prove my point. I can't have that. We want him to do well. In 2 years' time, we might be talking about an absolute legend in Ruben Selles, but we've got to give him the chance to be that. He's taken over in a different circumstance to what he's done before. It's a different gig for him, and obviously, I'm quietly excited about what could be down the line. Well
said, mate. Well said. Beat that then, Dave.
Can't really. Aside to say, lots to be positive about. Let's be patient because it might not click straight away. And there's going to be so much to talk about. So make sure bell icons are hit. So that you're not going to miss anything because there's going to be lots and lots going off this summer. It's going to be really exciting. So
well said, Dave. Yes, if you're not already, please do like if you like what we do, then please like the stream and make sure you're subscribed. And if, like Dave says, if you want to catch us when we're going, because it might not always be pre-planned. And now with this new software, we are exclusively on YouTube at the moment. That may change. I may take a decision to remain exclusively on YouTube. So in order to get us and know when we're coming on, make sure you hit that notification bell so you know what's happening. Thank you to everybody in the comments tonight. Apologies we couldn't get everybody's comment read. Hopefully I got everybody that made a comment read out somewhere along the line, because we always try and do that. But we had a lot to say tonight, as we tend to do, because we're chatty lads, particularly me and Mr. Mountain. And there were a lot of comments in, which I always appreciate, and I'll always try and get through them. But for now, come on, you red and white wizards.
Up the Selles Blades.